Happy St. Patty's Day, everybody. Hope you're getting into some shenanigans honoring the great Mr. St. Patrick. If it's your first time here, we are a podcast where we help men become the best versions of themselves and to highlight that we cannot do it alone. My name is Johnny, and with me as always is Mr. Tucker.
We have a great guest on today. His name's Patrick Knerr. He's actually my barber. And so he's going to dive into how he got into being a barber, what his journey looked like. Barbershops, for whatever reason, are a space where guys feel like they can open up and talk about anything and everything. And so Patrick really has a lot of great stories to share and insight to share. And he even dives into what some of the biggest problems are that are facing men today. And so we hope you enjoy the episode. It's a long one, so go ahead and buckle in and enjoy. All right, welcome to the For My Dawgs podcast. Got Johnny here with me as always. How you doing, Johnny?
Cheers, everyone. Tucker, I'm wearing our Here For You clothing company.
Yep, I got the hat.
Great.
Shout out to
them.
Yeah, they hooked us up, gave us some merch. It was very nice of them.
Yes.
And they're going to be coming on the podcast in a couple episodes, so
very soon.
Excited for that. But today we have another special guest who's come on our show, a man of many talents, a man who has a beard that puts other people's beards to shame.
To shame.
A man that has an incredible collection of tattoos, just a walking piece of art, some might say. A man who has honed in on his craft over the years and has mastered it and has spent countless times with men sitting in his barbershop chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce my barber. Cut my hair for probably 4 years now, I think. Patrick Knerr. Yeah, probably more than 4 years. But
yeah, easily probably more than that. Hey guys, awesome to be here.
Yeah,
I'm really stoked for this. Just been watching you guys and just talking with Tucker in the chair, and what you guys are doing, I think, is just absolutely awesome. So really, really stoked and honored to be asked to do this.
And Patrick, I've never heard Tucker give an introduction like that before, so you should be honored. Like, he's never spoke so highly of...
I was moved.
Me too. I think I started crying during this.
I was like, shit. I was like, is there somebody else?
That's awesome.
That was all just off the dome.
Yeah, that was good.
I was
yeah,
like,
I didn't mention any of that before. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, we appreciate you taking the time to do this. And
yes, thank you.
You know, I went to a lot of different barbers and hairdressers and whatever, and I just kept being like disappointed every time because I'm an extroverted person. Like, I don't want to just sit and shut up and like you cut my hair and I pay and leave. And so that kept being the case over and over again. Like, either someone would like talk and we would have good conversation, but the haircut was terrible, or they wouldn't say anything and the haircut was like decent. Until I had a friend that I was interning at a church at the time, and they recommended you. And man, I came and checked it out, and you just made me feel comfortable right away. We talked the whole time. The haircut was great. I love the vibe of, you know, Sambuco, the shop you work at. And so, yeah, I've never been anywhere else since. You've been my guy since then. So thankful that our paths crossed. And for our audience and our listeners, would love if you just, you know, introduce yourself a little bit, you know, kind of like your life outside of just being a barber. And because I know you, but Johnny doesn't really know you that well, and our audience doesn't. So yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah. So obviously I'm not going to, because I know we're going to get into it later as far as the hair part goes, but so I'm going to be 39 years old, originally from Pennsylvania, about an hour northwest of Philly. Nobody really knows where it's at, but it's Reading, if anybody's familiar with it. And so usually I start with Philly and work my way in.
Is that somewhat considered Amish country?
Oh, 100%.
100%?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Man,
and so
I watched a YouTube video of the Amish like moving a barn, and it was like hundreds of them just picking it up, moving it. And I was like, I got home and had to show it to Haley. I was like, Haley, you got to watch. That's the most crazy thing. They move it like
100% real.
So far.
In a day, they're done. Boom. Yeah.
Crazy. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
Continue.
So yeah, 100% Amish country. And it's always funny because like like I said, I always start with Philly and like work my way in because nobody really knows where I'm from. So I say Philly, Allentown, Bethlehem, and then I say Reading. Usually people know Allentown, Bethlehem, and then I say Reading, and then my actual town is Fleetwood. But I'm always like Amish country, and it never fails. Like when I was teaching before, like people would like look at me, and I knew what was coming next, and then they're like, "Are you Amish?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "No, I would not be here right now." So I grew up in a small, tiny little town. I mean, it was the best childhood. It really was. Growing up the late 80s, early 90s, middle of nowhere. Grew up on a farm. We had about 30 sheep. And my
Sounds
parents,
Amish.
yeah, right? I'll just keep checking.
You're not
checking
helping your case.
So we had about 30 sheep or so. My parents just really always wanted them. And we didn't really do anything with them. Like they would sell their wool sometimes and stuff like that. But I mean, it was the best childhood. I mean, from sun up to sundown, outside all day, every day in nature, running around, riding our bikes everywhere. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. So my dad, it's where my parents were originally from as well. They stayed where they grew up. And so my dad was a pipe fitter in the Philly Union, and my mom was a nurse. And then I do have one older sister. She's 3 years older, and she lives out in Denver, Colorado right now with her fiance and my little niece, Hazel. That's about a little over a year. That's absolutely adorable.
That's awesome.
That's a cool name,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. We call her Hazy.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
So I mean, growing up out there, absolutely loved it. Like I said, it was just a great way to grow up. It really was. Amazing parents. We had about, 10 or so acres and a pond and just got to live it up. And then coming up through, I played all sports. I loved all sports, baseball. Soccer was my main thing, and I took on to that pretty quickly. And when so you can start at under 8s, and then by under 10s, under 11 is when started to notice that there was like travel club stuff. And so tried out for that, and that was my life for the next 8 years. I played travel soccer for every single day, pretty much all year round. Absolutely loved it though, and I was fortunate enough to get on some good teams. And one year, I think I was probably like under 16 or so. We beat the Canadian national champs. We beat the U.S. indoor national champs.
Okay.
When I was
Nice.
15, my team went over to England for 2 weeks of training with English coaches.
That's so cool.
That was an incredible experience. Got to play English teams. We got to tour all the stadiums. We got to see a few pro games. Like we saw Everton. And just having that experience was absolutely incredible. The teams that we played, we got absolutely demolished because they're just on a whole different level over there. But it was just an absolute incredible experience. And, after the 8 years, I kind of was burned out. I really was. I loved the sport, but playing it all day, every day for 365, 8 years kind of takes a toll.
I'm sure.
And my dad wanted me to play in college, and but he knew I was like him, where I needed to work with my hands. There's no way I would have flunked out of college. I'm not good in a classroom. I'm not.
Yeah.
I need to be creative. I need to be doing stuff. But I definitely could have had opportunities, but it was just one of those things. And I saw the future too. Like at the time, you figure that's early 2000. I graduated 04. After college, there wasn't really much for soccer at that time. Like MLS had just started. It was only a few years in. Those guys were making, oh my God, I'm pretty sure majority of those guys had a real full-time job while they were playing, because they were making maybe 50 grand, if that. And nobody was really going overseas either. That was kind of not until a few years later that people started to go overseas. So I saw the writing on the wall and decided to just go to trade schools. So I originally went to automotive school and worked on cars. I wanted to build hot rods. And so did that, went 9 months, graduated. But yeah, so, and then I know we're going to get into then how that transpires into hair.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of stop there. But yeah, growing up in Pennsylvania, absolute best childhood, amazing parents. Couldn't ask for more. And then my wife and I obviously living here in North Carolina, and we did have 2 dogs. Unfortunately, we did have to put one down a few weeks ago. That's been a tough one.
Yeah.
And we got 2 cats, but we're huge. We love to cook together. We love being in the kitchen. We love hiking, camping, being outdoors. I'm a big F1 fan, obviously a big soccer fan. supporter of Manchester United over 30 years, and it's had some tough years, especially this last few. But yeah, that's kind of like me in a nutshell, I would say.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
The fact that you went overseas to play soccer, I mean, not
Yeah, it
to
was
say
sick.
that.
It was awesome. It really was. Yeah.
Yeah. And you and Megan are just I feel like always, every time I come get my haircut, I hear about something cool you're doing. Whether it's just camping
Yeah.
or you just got, I mean, y'all are just always finding cool stuff to do, which is great for y'all. And then fun fact too, you guys, I may be wrong saying this, maybe I made this up, but you got married in Vegas, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Heck
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
So I'll give a little gist of that. So we were living in Rhode Island at the time. That's where we met. That's where her family's all at. And we were planning to do a wedding, and we were going to do it as small as we could. And we didn't want to put the pressure of having the parents pay for it. So we were going to do it. And then if they wanted to contribute, cool, but no pressure. And so the more we did it, like we were still going to be spending, probably like 25 grand. And the more we were looking into it, like everybody has to tell you how to do it. Everybody gives you their opinion, and it just wears on you. And I'll never forget, like we were at Bed Bath & Beyond doing our registry, and we were going around, you're scanning random stuff. And the lady's like, oh, you should really scan more. And we're like, well, there's nothing else we want. And she's like, that's okay. You can add more later. And we're like, all right, whatever. So we get in the car, and my wife's friend calls her, and right away, she already saw the list, and she goes, you need to add more. And we're like, and so my wife just looked so defeated, and I was like, "What's up?" And she's like, "I don't know if I want to do this big thing anymore." And I was like, "Nope, I'm good." So nobody knew it, but we booked. Her cousin worked for Southwest, so we had tickets through her, and it was Thanksgiving morning that we were flying out.
Wow.
And I literally called my parents from the airport. I was like, "Hey, happy Thanksgiving! By the way, we're going to Vegas to get married." And they were so thrown off, but they were so happy for us. Like, they said that that's totally us. They were so happy. And my dad was like, if we were to do it again, that's what we totally do.
That's cool.
Because what was really great about it was, like, we went to the famous little white chapel. You literally walk in for your appointment. You have an appointment. And you sit with the father, priest, whatever he is. And he's like, all right. He's like, I got 2 questions. Do you have vows, or are you going to repeat after me? And I'm like, repeat after you. And then he's like, all right. He's like, do you want to walk together? Her walk to you. I was like, her walk to me. He's like, perfect. Let's go. And so we go in the room. Yeah,
That's crazy.
We go in the room, and him and I go to the front, and it was great because there's this little like pedestal with a portable CD player, and he presses play, and here comes the bride. So she comes walking down. Our witness was their 70, probably 5-year-old photographer. And but what was great was we weren't worried about who's sitting with who didn't show up, who's having beef with who. Her and I got to have those few moments of just us two. Yeah. And it really was awesome. We're so grateful that we did it that way. And then when we got home, we of course did parties with all the families and stuff.
Yeah. That's
awesome. Totally worth it. Yeah, it was like our package was $250. So yeah.
Hey, dude, you're like an onion. You just keep peeling up like layers. Finding new things.
There's so many avenues we can go down farther, deeper. Yeah.
Well, I want to go down the next avenue of your tattoos, man. I got a couple myself, but I mean, like just from what I see right now, it looks like you got 2 sleeves.
Working on the second one, getting there. I have some space that I got to fill, but getting there.
What's your favorite one?
So I was looking at that, and I was thinking about that the other day. It's a tough one. It really is, because a lot of them are kind of like memorial stuff. So my left arm, I mean, the first one I ever got was this one here, which was for this cross from my best friend that passed away from cancer when we were like 18. And what was really special about that is I drew it up, and then about 5 or 6 of us ended up getting it.
Wow, that's really
which
cool.
was really cool. And it felt really special to me that they wanted to do it as well, the design I did. And so it just meant a lot. And he was our best friend. He was our keeper in soccer for our travel team and stuff like that. The kid was a beast. He was the best keeper I'd ever seen. But unfortunately, lost his arm first, so he couldn't play. And then, but I learned so much from him, from his positivity. Like that kid, he didn't let anything get him down. He was still a better skateboarder than me with one arm too, by the way.
Yeah.
So, but he didn't like, I remember when we went to the hospital first time when he got his arm, I think amputated at the elbow. And we were nervous to go in the room. We really were. We walk in and he's making fun of it. He's calling it his dolphin because it had this, it almost looked like a dolphin. And like from there on out, like we never saw, he fought it for over 3 years. They gave him like 6 months and he fought it for over 3 years. And we never saw him cry once, not once.
Wow.
So I learned a lot from him. So of course that one's special.
Yeah, of course.
And then I have my grandfather, who is the barber. I have his name around my wrist with the bar pole as the eye.
That's cool.
My grandmother, who's the only one left, Mary Lou, when she was a kid, her and her sister. So, I mean, that's good. That's going back to what, like 20s, I don't know. They're musicians. And so they played, my grandmother played piano. And back in the day, they were actually on the radio. Like they were that good that they were on the radio.
That's
so
cool.
This is her name, Mary Lou, and the notes are actually from her song "Echoes in the Canyon."
That is
one
awesome.
of her songs.
That's
I think
so
that she
cool.
wrote when she was 10. That she wrote.
Yeah.
So I got that, and then I got my mom's parents on that side. My grandparents, they were hardcore bowlers. They love bowling, so their names are in the bowling pins.
That's so cool.
And my client who owns Made to Last, Chris Stewart, he's the one who he did all these through here. He made it the whole like 70s vibe kind of theme.
Yeah, that's cool.
And here he was a bowler back in the day, so he was stoked to do this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Like I got Anthony Bourdain's little logo because he was such an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And then I have of course you can't go wrong with a Philly tattoo.
The Philly one.
Yeah.
That's the proper way to order a cheesesteak.
That's awesome.
So of course I love that. And then my sleeve on my right side, I saved this arm for that. And it's a red-tailed hawk with a Japanese pine tree. And ever since a kid, I've been obsessed with red-tailed hawks.
Yeah.
Mostly because my dad is too. And so it's a cool little thing that we share. And also too, in Japanese, red-tailed hawk, I believe it's taka. And it has a few different meanings. But one of them is kind of translated, it's kind of like a man with many talents. And so just all the things I've done in my life, I figure it's also very fitting with me. So it's kind of the route I wanted to go. And then, of course, want to do the whole body, but
yeah,
that's
money. Awesome.
And pain.
Yeah. Tattoos are an addicting habit. They're not a cheap habit. Yeah.
No. Not at all.
Yeah, but no, that's sick, man. That's awesome. Like, I love how all of them have stories, and like I just love how cool they are. What's it like? You don't mind? Where's the tattoo shop that you go to?
So there's two that I always highly recommend. So my client, Chris Stewart, he owns Made to Last with a guy he goes by name Skinny. It's in Uptown.
Gotcha.
Award-winning shop, absolutely beautiful. They got probably about 10 to 12 artists. No matter what you're looking for, they have somebody. And like I mentioned, Brandon earlier, who designed that. Brandon runs it. He's incredible. So if you don't have an artist in mind, if you tell him what you're looking to get done, he'll piece you with the perfect person.
Yeah.
And the other one is called All My Heart. So Graham Beach, who did my arm,
right?
He wasn't Made to Last, and then he left and opened up All My Heart, and that's in South End.
Oh, awesome!
And he's got a bunch of great artists as well. So those are the two that I always highly recommend.
Yeah, I kind of want to get some more, and I have no idea where to go. So I'll definitely check those places out.
There you go.
Definitely check those out. Yeah, you can't go wrong, man. Especially depending on what you're going for. Like they'll knock it out of the park.
Dude, sick.
Yeah.
I'm already learning stuff, Tucker. Where are you at?
Yeah.
I know.
Right.
I already knew all this, Johnny. You're
Sorry,
playing catch up.
That's true. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But actually, I will say I'm learning some stuff in this conversation that I don't think we've talked about before. So
no, you probably definitely will. I'm sure, like looking down through the list, there's probably definitely going to be some stuff. Yeah. Which will be cool.
Which is really awesome. Well, one of the things we have talked about when I've been sitting in your chair and we bonded over is bourbon and cigars.
Oh, yeah.
So wanted to ask you, because I don't know if I've ever asked you this question or not before, but for you, what would be your go-to bourbon and then your go-to cigar?
So, man, it's a tough one because there's such good stuff out there. Bourbon-wise, I mean, the tops, you got E.H. Taylor Small Batch, Eagle Rare, of course. I would probably say my all-time favorite is Calumet Small Batch. It's a green label, so it's a blend of 8 and 15 year, and it's only 86 proof, and it is just so smooth and delicious, just easy drink. Well, again, if you find it, it's one of those things, which is annoying.
Yeah.
So I've been nursing the bottle I have like crazy. That's the part that sucks. But like, as far as like just over the counter stuff, the stuff that you can buy, I mean, I love Wild Turkey 101. Can't go wrong with that. And I feel like the whole Jefferson line, Jefferson Reserve, like they make great stuff. I'm really happy that Smoke Wagon, I think, is not allocated anymore. Their small batch is incredible. So there's some really good go-tos that I have. I have way too many bottles. I'm grateful because like around Christmas time, all my clients get me bourbon, but it's like, God, I need to get rid of some of this. Like I probably have about 50 bottles.
No, you can never have too many.
Hey,
right?
If you need some help getting rid of them,
right? Yeah, gladly.
We can help you nurse some of those bottles.
Yeah. We'll do an in-person podcast.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's right.
Dude, but
we tried that once and it didn't go too well.
Didn't work out. Tucker and I need more technology with that.
Yeah.
But no, North Carolina pissed somebody off in the liquor business because it's so hard. Because like I live like in Georgia, so when I go to Georgia, pure rare is like in bulk and it's so easy to get there. But then when you come here, it's so scarce and it's like, who did you make mad? Like, why is it so hard? I don't know.
It's awful. And then I really truly feel that the people at ABC, not all the stores, but majority of them like almost like hide them or save them for people. Because like the one time I had to play a cat and mouse game to get a bottle for a friend, and God, it was just so annoying. It's like, why do we have to do this? Like, is my money not good enough?
Yeah.
So it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. So unless they're slipping them money, I don't know. But yeah, it's just annoying.
I agree with that statement. Yeah.
And then moving to cigars. So I would probably say like just a go-to easy smoke. I was telling you about it, Tuck, the other day at the last appointment. The Room 101 Miami Snow. It's a Connecticut blend. It's just easy smoke. It's just really enjoyable. Great flavor. So I that's something, if I were to smoke like every day, like I could easily have one of those every day. But then I love, man, the blackened M81. I think it is the Metallica one. That's if you haven't had that one yet, incredible. Absolutely incredible. More bold, more spice to it. A lot of flavor. Just easy smoke as well. But yeah, really good. So if you're looking to kind of like Miami Snow is on the lighter side, and then you have the blackened one, which is going to be a little bit more bold, like I said. It's a great step up from there if you're looking for something a little bit more flavor, kind of more robust. And then there's a group on Instagram called Tobacco Tactical. And it's like guys that, former military guys, of course, and they actually go and like curate and actually make their own blends and make their own cigars.
Oh, interesting.
Cool.
And then they sell them, and they even have a club too that you can join. I think it's like $45 a month. You get 5 sticks a month. But I bought a bunch of theirs. Yeah, it's not bad. And so I bought a bunch of theirs because they'll do limited drops of them, like little one-offs, and absolutely incredible. Every single one I've had was absolutely incredible. So if I can get my hands on those, like I definitely do that. And it sucks too because like you kind of baby those because they're not gonna be out again. You're not gonna get it again. So it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But they're really good. Yeah. So if you guys haven't checked them out, I would check them out.
No, yeah, I want to try to find those. I like the name of them like already, so I need to find them.
Yeah, they're really fun. They do a bunch of other stuff too. Like they have like stickers, patches, shirts, all types of stuff. They're really cool guys.
Yeah, we'll have to give them a follow for sure.
Yeah. No, for sure we'll follow. Yeah. So going back to your, I know you said that your grandpa, you said was a barber. So didn't know if that's what made you become a barber, but like what inspired you to become a barber, and like what was the journey like for you? Because you said you were going to soccer and then the auto shop, and then you kind of stopped there. So yeah, it's kind of a funny story. So obviously I grew up with it. So I'm grateful enough to be third generation. Oh, wow. Cool.
My great grandfather, Clarence, he cut for 77 years. Then my his brother, so I guess that would be my great uncle, I guess. He cut for about 55 years. And then it was my grandfather. He cut for 72 years. He retired at 90, did not want to retire.
That's crazy.
But my family, everybody kind of felt like it was for the best.
Yeah.
But the thing that sucked was once he did retire, like his mental health went down big time. because you don't realize 72 years of that social interaction every day of just having people to talk to and stuff like that. Like, he took a hit, real big hit, and he used to be the life of the party, the jokester. Man, he was hysterical. And then once he retired, you slowly, like, he just kind of sit by himself at parties, and it just wasn't the same. So it was kind of sad to see, but I mean, absolutely incredible career. And so of course, and I wish I had the photo here. I have a photo of my great grandfather and my grandfather giving my dad his first haircut. And so it's from 1954. That's my favorite photo that I have, because ever since I started doing this, my Nana, she has given me like everything. And so I have all these photos of them and stuff like that. So it's really cool. So of course my dad comes along, born in 1953. So all the men before him were barbers. So he wanted to be a barber. And he even tested it out when he was a kid too. So when my grandfather built the house in 1951, he put the barbershop right in the front. Also, mind you, he built the house for $11,000.
That hurts.
Right.
I wish you never told me that.
Oh,
so then they had my dad at 53, and so a few years go by, and they're like digging a hole out back to put a tree in, and they can't find my dad. And so all of a sudden they're looking around the house, they can't find him, and here he's in the ditch that they dug, and they're like, "Why are you hiding?" And here, while they were outside digging, he went into the barber shop. And the day before, my grandfather showed him how to use the clipper because my dad was curious. So my grandpa was all excited. He's like, "Oh, he wants to learn how this all works." Like, it's great. So the next day, my dad goes in there and takes it and just goes right down the middle. Yeah. So just scalped himself. So
like
just
a
no
backwards
hair.
mohawk. Yeah.
Yeah. So my grandfather kind of regretted teaching him how that worked.
Yeah.
But he was also excited because, he showed interest in it. But when my dad became of age, you figured it was the late 60s, early 70s. And so guys were growing out their hair. So they weren't coming as often to the shop. So you saw business kind of start to decline.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. And so my grandfather got a second job, third shift at the factory in town. So he'd work all day in the barbershop and then work third shift at the factory. And so, you always want what's better for your kid. So he looked at him and was like, "Listen, you're not doing this. I want you to do something else." And so that's why my dad joined the Philly Union and became a pipe fitter there. And did that for, I believe, 45 years or more. Wow. Did that. So obviously it's in my family. But it's funny, like my grandfather, the house is 5 minutes from our house. He cut my hair my whole life. Like, he cut out of that house his whole career. But I never thought about it. I never thought about it as a career, never thought about it as an option. Never in a million years did I think about hair. And so fast forward to high school, I think it was junior year, I grew my hair out and like down to my shoulders. All my buddies, we all did, because we were all curious of what a hair would look like. Because like I had wavy hair, buddy had curly hair, another buddy had straight hair. And so my grandfather didn't obviously work with long hair. And I do remember one time, though, I did go to him when I had long hair. And him just not used to work with long hair, he cut my bangs straight across.
Oh, nice.
And let me tell you something. And we weren't allowed to wear hats in school.
Yeah.
That was brutal. That was brutal. So I had a friend, really good friends. They were sisters. One was a grade ahead of me and one was a grade below, two below me. And they had a sister who owned a salon. And they were really cool. They were quirky, artsy. And so I started to go see them. And I'll never forget, like, I had to tell my grandfather. And I was shitting my pants. I really was. And so I went down, hung out with him in the shop. Like, I would always go down and hang out with him, like just sit in the barber chair. He would sit in one of the regular chairs and we would talk. And so I go down there and he'd sit in there and he could tell something was up. So he's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, And so I told him, and he was so funny. He's like, "Are you kidding me? Come on." He's like, "I don't blame you at all." So it was really,
that's cool.
That was a huge weight off my shoulders. But yeah, he completely understood. He loved it. He was just like a dirty old man. So he was funny. So he completely understood. And so I started to go to them. And what was really cool about them was, so they were on Main Street in Kutztown, where they're Kutztown University. It's a college town. And they're right on Main Street. And so they did crazy cuts and colors, like all the time. So what was really cool was I got to see hair as art because I loved art. That's where I always hung out in high school most of the time. Like I was very into drawing, painting, sculpting, things like that. I was very artistic. Hence why I love tattoos. So I got to see hair as art. And so it came time to obviously graduate high school. And so I decided to go to automotive school. And so I did that. Absolutely loved it. And really wanted to build hot rods. But where I grew up, there wasn't any like good shops. So I had a buddy that found I went to automotive school with. He found a shop an hour and a half away. And he's like, bro, come with me. Like we can carpool, we can ride it. And I'm like, no, I'm not driving an hour and a half one way.
Yeah.
Proud of him though, man. He's still at that shop, and the cars that he's building are absolutely unreal.
That's cool.
I'm very proud of him. I'm really stoked for him. And so, I just got a job at a collision shop, which if you can think of the most boring job to do, it is a collision shop. Because all you're doing is making a car look stock again from getting beat up or something like that. It's nothing fun. It's nothing artistic, nothing creative. So it kind of wore at me every day. And because I wasn't kind of getting to be creative, and I really wanted to be a painter. I loved painting cars, but the problem in the industry is painters don't leave. When they find a shop, they stay there. And so the painter at that shop, he was young. He was only like a few years older than me. So I'm like, well, I got no future here because he ain't going nowhere. So the collision shop happened to be right down the road from the salon. So I used to just, most days after work, just go hang out with them. Because again, I think it's just like surrounding myself with that creativity and that environment, and just seeing how they talked with their guests and stuff like that. It was really cool. Seeing people just wanting to come in and hang out, like besides me, like it was really cool to see that. And I'll never forget it. I was miserable one day, and I go there, I'm hanging out. So the one stylist, her name is Missy. She looks at me and she goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm like hanging out like I always do." And she's like, "No, with your life." She's like, "Clearly you're unhappy."
I love
and I was
that.
like, "Yeah." I was like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Why don't you do hair?" She's like, "You're here with us every day, and it's in your family."
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's amazing.
And that's really what actually made it click. Because I never thought about it before that. And I really thought about it. And I was still living at home at the time. And I went home and I was having dinner with my parents. And I was kind of reluctant to kind of bring it up. Because obviously I just went to school and like just graduated from a school. So I'm like, and I brought it up. I was like, "Oh, Missy said something today." And my parents were like, "Oh yeah, what?" And I told them, and my dad was like, "Wow." He's like, "How did we never think about that?" And so I remember he got up from the table from us eating, and he went right to the computer and he was looking up schools. And so at the time though, so you figure this is early 2000s. So one thing you probably don't know, Tuck. So in the early 2000s, so barbering was kind of disappearing. So you saw a lot of guys shifting. So you saw guys leaving the barbershop and going to salons, kind of like for more of an experience and things like that. So the barbershops were kind of not disappearing, but just kind of on the wayside, and nobody's really opening them. And you just saw this rush of clients to salons. And so my grandfather, and us being from a small town, couldn't see like a bigger picture. And he, of course, remember when he went through those ups and downs back in the 70s, like, so he really wanted me to have a really great career. And so he saw how much I loved hanging out at the salon and stuff like that and what they did. And so he pushed for me to go to cosmetology school because he felt like I would have a better career. And so that's what I did. So technically I am a cosmetologist.
Okay.
So I looked up schools, and we had a school called Empire, which back in the day, the education was not the best. Facilities weren't the best. They had really stepped up their game. They incredible education now. Facilities are great. But when I saw Paul Mitchell at a school, I was like, okay, it's a name I recognized, a big name. So I'm like, well, they got a school. It's got to be good. So we look up. The closest one is Rhode Island. So we literally drove up for a day and drove 6 hours to go look at the school and also try to find an apartment in one day. and did it, signed up, and so incredibly grateful. Like the education system that Paul Mitchell does is worlds beyond other places, and just how they do things, how they keep you active, keep your brain moving. So one of the cool things is they have you do a multiple intelligence test. That's the first thing you do when you get there. So it's a way for you to learn what kind of learner you are. And I don't understand why not every school in the world is doing this, especially for kids.
Yeah.
So you take this test and you find out, are you a visual learner? So, which I am. So if somebody shows you something, you're good. You got it. And that's how I am. Are you a mathematical person? So you like things in order and written out, almost like a cookbook, which means
like step-by-step instruction, stuff
exactly.
like that.
Yeah. Which no, forget it. I'll read the first one and then I'm like, wait, what is that again?
Yeah.
Musical, body kinesthetics, where you got to be using your hands all the time. You got to be doing stuff. And so there's all these different end results. And so it's a great way for the teachers to know then how to work with you. And that changed my life.
That's
because
so cool.
I probably should not have graduated high school. And it's just because I didn't do good in a classroom.
Yeah.
I could not pay attention. I would just daydream. And so once I did this, though, it changed my life. It really did. And I got to adapt my learning to how I learn.
Yeah,
and
that's huge.
Yeah, so
you're
I did.
Right. Schools need to do that more. That would be
like I don't understand
so
why they don't.
game-changing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I flourished then in school, which was awesome. It felt great, and also too, I think I just ultimately loved it. I think I was meant to do it, and so go to school. I think I had two other kids. I had two other kids in my class. There was three of us, which was awesome too, because great one-on-one. And just the curriculum is absolutely incredible. So I'll never forget, though, my core teacher, her name was Anne-Marie. Love her to death. And we were about to do a cutting class. First time ever. And of course, me coming from my background, felt a little cocky. So she gave me a doll head to cut. And I didn't want to do it there, so I took it home. And I tried cutting it at home. And man, I was just like picking up random pieces and, all right, cool, all right. Yeah, all right. And I butchered that whole so bad. So the next day she's like, where's the doll head? And I was like, oh, no, I threw that out. That was not good. So because of that moment, though, I understood that there is so much more to cutting than I ever knew. And I wanted to know everything there was about it. I became obsessed with hair cutting. You know, I'm grateful for my education, going to a cosmetology school because of what I got to learn, color, texture, everything. But the cutting, I just took to that. And I don't know why, but I just love the precision of it. That is almost like sculpting. It was like architecture, and that there is a system to it. There's foundations, and there's a way to go about it. Like you can't just randomly do it. And I fell in love with that. And so every night I would just watch videos. My teacher would give me DVDs of the top Paul Mitchell platform artists, and some of the guys like DJ Muldoon that came from Sassoon, which is the best cutters in the world. And I'll never forget something he said. It's not how it leaves, it's how it looks when it comes back that makes the difference. And if you did a good job or not, if you did a good haircut or not. And so I did that. That was about a 9-month program. It depends on if you go every day. You can get it done in about probably like 9-10 months. Almost a year. Part-time was about 18 months. But had incredible opportunities. Got to meet some incredible people. Got to meet John Paul DeJoria, the owner of Paul Mitchell, while I was there. Just some of the connections I made were absolutely incredible. But as my career went on, I just found myself going more towards my family and the legacy of my family. And so as time went on, so I started off in salons doing both men and women. But I just felt more drawn to doing men, like cutting men's hair. And I think it's just because of my family. And I still talk about it to this day that, and Jervon, our one barber, he said, doesn't matter. But to me, like, I still want to like go back and get my barbering license, even though there's really no difference. Like the only thing that they learn differently is the actual shaves. But that's something that we learn outside, they learn in the school. And that's really the only difference. And I know a lot of people are fighting to create just one cohesive license, which makes sense, I think. So yeah, eventually may try to do it. Who knows? We'll see. But
No. I was gonna unpack just like there's so much you said there, and I wanted to make sure that like we follow up with that. Is like so one, I thought it's super cool. The two people in your life, one, the barber that you were like going and hanging out with, how sometimes like you need people to call you out for stuff because you're so like tunnel vision for that. And it was super cool that like you could have argued with her.
Easily.
But instead you like listened to her, and then we talked to your parents. They could have shot you down too, but instead they just like opened came like with open arms to you, and those two moments really were a pivoting point for your life.
100%. Yeah.
But they could have gone a different direction if there was like conflict with that. And so the fact that both of those were a welcoming time and not an arguing time, I mean, that just like kept you on that pathway. That's so cool. The people in your life, you know.
I do got to give my parents tremendous amount of credit. My entire life, they've always been supportive, no matter what I wanted to do. They never said like no. As far as like me trying to be creative and try something new, they would never say no. They would always be all for it. So I've been very grateful for that, having that in my life, because they kind of taught us to be adventurous, dreamers, you know, kind of see the world differently instead of being stuck. Because where I come from, that's what happens. You get stuck. I have a lot of buddies that work at it's called Deca, which is a battery manufacturer, the largest manufacturer in Pennsylvania. And you start off making, I think it was like $25 an hour, and that was back in the early 2000s. So what happens? You start buying cars, trucks, and you get stuck. Yeah. And so everybody's just blue collar back home, and I love it there. But it's like everybody's, how I put it, I feel like everybody's like good with what they got, and they don't need to try to do more or have more, which I commend and respect. I love that they're content with their life. They love it. They're good with it. But for me, I was always adventurous, and I always felt like there was more to the world and more meant for me. So that's why I've never been afraid to like go to Rhode Island to go to school, or like automotive schools out in Pittsburgh, go out there or hop around or start over. Where my dad, you know, in that moment could have easily been like, nope, you're just going to work. Like, just keep going to work, which is how I feel like a lot of people would have been. So that really helped my life, was them just being so open and listening and curious as well, like along with me. Like, hey, let's see what that's about. That's really helped me out.
It's a Ted Lasso quote right there.
I was going to say it if you didn't. So.
Yeah. It was like, be curious, not judgmental. Right, Tucker?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. There we go.
That's a quote to live by.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick, since, you know, we're getting into your whole barbershop experience, which I'm guessing now I'm realizing, is it wrong to call you a I mean, you are a barber, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just don't have you're technically certified as a cosmetologist. You just don't have paper. But in my eyes, you're a barber, so that's all that matters. Who cares what other people think?
Yeah. I go as a barber because that's all I do. That's cut men's hair. Have been for the past, majority of my career has strictly been men. So yeah.
And then I don't know if you touched on it, but you also taught at a school for a while, didn't you?
So I did. So I didn't mention that yet. Yeah. So I did. So I ended up going back to Paul Mitchell, the school I learned at, to be an instructor. And I did that for, I think, a little over 5 years. And so I was the cutting specialist. So I was in charge of all the cutting curriculum in the school, making sure the teachers were teaching it properly. I was in charge of all the cutting classes, and I absolutely loved it. I loved teaching because for me, like, I love helping people, especially just in everyday life. I love helping people if they have stuff going on, just talking with them, being very open. So it's great to help these kids, you know, not know how to hold a pair of scissors, to all of a sudden they come running up to me and showing me this haircut that they executed on their own. Like, that was like one of my proudest moments, was seeing that, how excited they were that they achieved this result without me, but from what they learned from me. And that was my all-time favorite. But I also loved seeing, like, if somebody was having a tough time, maybe outside of school, I loved to sit down with them and talk with them and see if I could help them out. Even if it wasn't like, I remember this one girl, she didn't want to do hair. And I just really tried to mentor her and help guide her in maybe the new direction she wanted to go. But I always try to encourage them to at least finish, so they had something, and at least until they figure that whatever that next step is, they can be making some money. And it's a great tool to know for the rest of your life how to cut people's hair, because you can utilize that at any point. So I would always try to encourage them not to drop out and just to at least finish and then try to figure out what that next step is. So I taught at Rhode Island for it's about 5 years. And then I transferred to the school here in downtown Charlotte and did that for about half a year. So the tricky part is I truly cared about the kids and their education. I love Paul Mitchell, and if you're going to go to a school, that's the school to go to. But in the end, they're corporate. And so it's tough. It's tough because, of course, you know, they're looking at how many kids are they getting in, stuff like that. So we kind of butted heads at times. And when I moved down here, I think I was looking for an out. And when I found Sambuco, that I knew right away, I was like, this is what I've been looking for and waiting for. And that was my kind of way to just kind of leave the schools. But it is something I do tremendously miss. I miss the kids. I miss the kids. And like I said, just watching them, seeing them grow into just new people. Like, it's awesome. Like seeing people do 180s, like coming in and being just maybe not the best kids, like just, you know, talking back, don't want to do anything, to then just flourishing and being one of the best students and graduating with honors. Like, it's really cool to see that and be a part of that. So eventually, like, I would love to possibly get back to something in the form of teaching in one way or another. But yeah, I'm tremendously grateful for the time teaching and the friends I made and the connections I made in the school system. There's some incredible people across the country in that school system that I'm really helped to change my career and transform it. I'm so really grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, helping someone become the best version of themselves can be one of the most satisfying things, you know, beyond
really
whatever personally you're able to do, or you know, what type of growth you have. If you see it in the life of someone else you're investing in, that just like, that takes the cake. So that's a really cool part of your story too, is that you had that experience as well.
Yeah. So whenever a new class would come in, obviously all the specialists would come in and talk with the group, and then even at graduation, when the parents would be there, I would always tell them, and I know the parents always appreciate it and stuff. I would always tell them, my sole goal for you guys is to see you far succeed me in this career. That is my sole goal. And I love seeing that. And I still reach out to a lot of students because they follow me and I follow them. And I'll reach and I'll see like a student open a salon, and I'll be like the first one to respond and just saying how proud I am and stuff like that. And it's just great seeing how much that meant to them. Just that I reached out and how much they learned from me and stuff like that. But that's always been my goal, is to see them far succeed me.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. How long have you been at Sambuco?
So this shop in August will be 7 years that the shop's been open. And so I came on, they opened up at the end of August 2018. I came on, I think it was November of that year. So I was like, just like 3 months shy of the opening. So pretty much been there the whole time.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So
yeah, almost 6.5 years.
Yeah. So in that time, what would you say the funniest experience well, maybe not just at Sambuco, but just in your time of being a barber, what's like the funniest moment or experience you've had?
I've been looking at this question nonstop. And I've been really trying to think, because obviously I've been doing this. This is going into my 18th year. Man, this is the hardest one, because I mean, there is just almost every day. I absolutely love what I do, because I get to work with my friends, and like we banter all the time. And I love when we banter, like we get on a topic and we include the guests too. So you have the whole shop getting in on something. So, man, so much of that happens like every day. And like there was one that we did like a few weeks ago about when you're listening to music or TV, do you have it on odd or even numbers?
Even, for sure.
Yes, never odd.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and Jervon goes, I just listen. Like I don't pick a specific thing. And we're like, you're a psychopath.
That is psychotic.
Yeah.
So we go and stuff like that, and the clients love it. But like funniest like moment, I know there's been probably some incredible ones. The only one that stands out to me was a few years ago. So over the past probably 4 years, there's been like these like almost like challenges that barbers do to their guests. And it could be like using the air nozzle to blow their mouth open. It could be like the newest one is like sticking a finger in and pulling the lip.
I've seen that,
to shave. Yeah. So there's like stuff like that. Or like one barber like will say something about his cologne and they'll go to smell it and he'll kiss him on the forehead. Which
funny.
my one client sent me that. He's like, listen, man, I love you, but I'd probably punch you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
hilarious.
the one day, Drew decided to do, there was a neck strip challenge. So we use those white neck strips to protect you from the cape. And it was to see how many you could get on them before they notice. and I think he ended up getting like 8 of them on.
Oh my.
Wow.
So it was this huge wad.
Yeah.
And finally, all of a sudden, his client, he's like, what are you bored? Like, what are you doing? And Meg filmed it, so we have video of it, and it's hysterical.
Oh,
because he just kept going, and he just kept not noticing. So he ended up getting like 8 or so on.
8's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it took time. It took time.
Was that a consistent client or like?
Yeah.
Had he? Okay, so he's done this a million times. He knows it's just one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he was distracted or what. But like we all were trying not to laugh, but it was so hard not to. And I think he probably picked up on that we were laughing and then figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably like the first one that popped in my head when I saw that question.
It is pretty funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I love this, like, you know, like, Patrick, I just met you, and like I'm already like laughing and having a great time, and like he's like, you're just like you're really good at just having the conversation carry on. And Tucker was telling me that like before we even started this podcast, like that was the one thing he was talking about. And so, is that something that you developed? Like, is that a subject in school that they teach you, or is that something that like because your family, like your third generation, is that something that just comes natural to you?
So it's more so natural. For me, I feel like it's not something we teach. It's something that we tried to help them with, but I was a very shy kid, very shy. I was more outgoing when I was really young. And then, of course, I hit like, you know, typical teenage years and hormones and, you know, just moody and all that. Won't get into like details, but I had a moment in my life where I was in middle school and really close friend that I had like, all of a sudden, like, because we were hanging out, like, we all had the same friends, but there was almost like little cliques within the friends and kind of became a bully. And that, you know, one person that you went to for everything all of a sudden changes on you. And so that had a big effect on me. And I kind of put a wall up emotionally. And so that kind of shut me down. And so I became more shy, and it was hard for me to talk to people and just be open, even though I felt like I always wanted to. Like, I felt like inside I wanted to talk and just be outgoing, but I just would reserve myself. And I felt like I was just kind of protecting myself from getting hurt. But so obviously my grandfather talks and talks and talks. My dad does not stop talking. As a kid, of course, you hate it because, like, you'll be in the grocery store and, like, you know, you say, or you'll be like, oh, it's a cool car, and the guy's getting out of the car. Well, my dad's going to go talk to the guy. And be like, yeah, my son over there loves that car, loves your car. And like, you're just embarrassed. And so, and my dad being in the union, he's worked countless jobs all over. So you couldn't go anywhere with him without, you know, him running into somebody he knows.
Right.
And so he loves to talk. And like I said, my grandfather as well. And so I feel like I've always had it in me. And so when I went to hair school, I was still shy. And I'll never forget this. So our school is 2 floors, and I was in what they call core, which is where you start off the first 6 weeks. And I'm coming up the stairs, and this girl, still remember, her name was Rachel. She's coming down the stairs, and as we're passing, and she doesn't stop either. Like, it's as she's passing, she goes, "You really need to talk more." And I was like, what?
Wait, are we talking?
Yeah. And she just kept going. But I actually owe so much to her for that. That's because after that, I took a step back and I looked at it. I'm like, well, shit, if this is the career I'm choosing, I need to talk to people.
Yeah.
And after that, I think it just kind of like released me, and it allowed me to just be myself. And from that point on, like, I just didn't shut up. Like, I just loved talking. And what it really came down to was I love hearing other people's stories.
Yeah.
And so anything to kind of just keep them going and keeping them talking, keeping the conversation engaged. And I just love learning about people. And like I said, about the students, I love helping them out. And so just being an active listener and then returning that, showing that, hey, I am listening, and trying to keep that conversation going by, responding to what they're talking to. So from that point on, it was like game on. And so it just feels very natural to me. And I absolutely love it. And, even my wife says to me all the time, because she's the manager of the shop, she loves seeing how I interact with the clients, because I truly love it. I absolutely love what I do every single day, and get and talk with them. I love hearing about people's lives, their families, their stories, what they're up to, vacations. Like, I love being engaged in their life, being a part of their life. And I think it definitely shows, and I think people appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think,
okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Johnny.
Sorry. I like how you had this like low point to where you just like shut down and you're like, I'm not talking to anyone else. And then you can like, and then you kind of like rose from that again. And that's like really cool for people maybe like listening right now who are at that low point, don't want to talk to anybody, think they never will do that. And like, hey, no, like you can, and there's hope for that. And that's why, like honestly, and Tucker, I'm sorry to say this, but I prefer to have guests on rather than just Tucker and I. And it's not against Tucker at all. Maybe it's not. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
but I
gotta step up my game.
I'm just hearing stories, and like you were saying, Patrick, it's just like asking questions and just listening.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn so much. You laugh. You appreciate people. You learn stuff about yourself. And so, I mean, that's kind of what we're doing. Is the same way. So it's really cool to see your progress on that as well.
Yeah.
And I think one thing you said that I feel like makes you a great conversationalist is because what you love about it is centered on the other person, not on yourself. And that's what I've experienced. Like, being in your chair, I would come in maybe once a month. At other times it's been more frequent than that, but usually it's once a month.
Yeah.
And I mean, you would remember things from the last time that I told you, and you've had countless clients since the last time I saw you. And that always stuck out to me. And, even at a time when I was really struggling with like what I wanted to do with my life and figuring out my career, like you always made me feel comfortable to talk about it in that space, just because like you asked questions and you like sincerely listened. And so, not only was I talking to Johnny about that stuff at that time, but when I would come see you to get my haircut, we would, if there was any new updates or any new stuff happening, I would usually let you know about it. And, so yeah, it's cool. You get to walk, alongside a lot of people as they're on their own journey and, figuring things out, which is awesome.
Well, it's funny because, in saying that, I probably average 18 to 20 people a day. And so you can even ask my wife this. I can't remember something she said to me days ago, but I will remember something you said years ago.
Yeah.
And it's funny how it works because somebody will sit down, and even it'll be like the second time I've done them, and maybe they're like an every 6 weeker. And I'm like, oh, how was blah, 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 you're doing that the last time. And they're like, wait, what? Like, you remember that? Yeah. But I can't remember like what I did yesterday.
So it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I feel like, memory is such a weird thing because Haley gets on to me about that too. Like, I'll remember some random sporting moment from years ago and could recite it like down to the details. But like you said, I can't remember what something she told me yesterday or maybe even 5 minutes ago.
We do have a memory episode. So if you're listening, if you want to,
there you go, Todd. You might
go back and listen to our memory episode. Now that I just remembered that.
There's a test at the end that I did not do well on.
Oh, yeah, you failed.
Oh, geez, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably feel that too. But one thing, like when I was teaching, like I couldn't stress this enough to my students. And again, like I would reiterate it over and over and over again, the power that we have by not doing hair. Like we could literally give somebody a trim and it could change their life. It could give them more confidence, whatever. But I said, you guys have to understand the power that you hold by just listening. I said, people will sit down in your chair and they will tell you things that they won't tell their husbands, wives, family members, all these people. Like, so it's crazy the power that we have. And I said, just you listening, I said, just be present, listen, be an active listener so that way you can engage with them and respond to them. But I said, you can change people's lives. I said, nobody else can really do that. It's hard for another profession to be able to do that. And we always called the students Daymakers at Paul Mitchell, the school. And so the story with Daymaker is there was this one hairdresser, and I could be like messing this up a little bit. It's been a while, but there's one hairdresser. He traveled the country and he'd always sit first class. And so he was always sitting next to these like millionaires, billionaires, big tech guys, big business guys. And he'd always start a conversation and would be like, oh, what do you do? And they'd be like, oh, I run this company, blah, blah. And what do you do? And he kind of like, he didn't really like that. He was just like, oh, I'm a hairdresser. And, he would say it. And he said, unfortunately, the conversation would shift sometimes, he said, because I wasn't this big business guy or millionaire or something like that. So he thought about it one day. And the next flight he was on, gentleman next to him, they started a conversation, asked him, what do you do? And it clicked to him and he goes, I'm a Daymaker. Hey, the guy kind of was taken back. He's like, what is a Daymaker? And he's like, I make people's day. And it all really stems from, there was a moment that he had in his career where it was like the end of the day, he finished his last guest and he was ready to go home and there was a walk-in. And it was just a blow dry, nothing crazy, but he's already mentally like out of the shop, ready to go. And so he's like, all right, screw it, I'll take it, let's go. And so he does this woman's blowout and, luckily he gave it his all, he did his best and he spun her around for her to face the mirror to show the work and she started crying. And so right away, he's like, he thought he messed something up and he's like, he felt so bad. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, what did I do wrong? What can I do to fix it? Blah, blah, blah. And she was honest with him. And she's like, ultimately, she's like, I came here to get my hair done as like a last thing for myself because she's like, I plan on going home and taking my own life.
Oh my gosh.
And what she said, because of the experience she had with him and the conversation she had with him, he didn't want to do that anymore.
Oh, I have chills
and so,
right now. Holy
yeah.
cow.
And so, I don't know if they're still around, if they're still alive, but they were friends forever after that.
Wow.
And so I would always make sure to tell the students like why they're called Daymakers and remind them the power that we hold of just listening or having a conversation, like anything, or just doing their hair, like just doing a beautiful job, being present and giving your all on their hair can completely change their lives. So I never took that for granted, that the power that we hold. And so that's why I said I love helping people, whether it be the hair, their life.
That's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, I feel like people in general, but I feel like men in particular, barbershops often create an environment where men feel like they can talk about anything and everything, and like they actually feel comfortable opening up for whatever reason. I don't know what started
still trying to figure that out.
Or,
Still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, but it just seems to be a thing. So, have you had that happen a lot in your time as a barber?
100%. Yeah, everybody. It's weird. It could be even their first time sitting down in the chair with you, like literally first time meeting you, and it's funny too because you figure there's a station maybe 4 feet away from me, each side, all around. The level that you're talking, everybody can hear you.
Yeah.
And these people will tell you things that sometimes you don't want to know, but it's also like everybody's hearing it, and they're okay with that. And it's kind of a cool thing, and it's kind of funny. I actually just thought of it right now that when they're in your chair, I ultimately feel like they might be like they're in a bubble.
Yeah.
Where it's just you two. And they feel so comfortable and they can speak openly about it. Even though people are going to hear them, I think they just feel safe and they feel like they're in this bubble because, they'll tell you stuff. And like I said, sometimes you don't want to, it's impressive what they tell you. But, it could be family stuff, could be passing, somebody passing away, struggling with a job, you just lost a job. But it's definitely huge. I have it almost every day where people open up. And like I said, I don't take that for granted. I'm grateful for that they feel comfortable with me being able to do that. And I almost feel like that's why I need to be present so I can possibly help, because I feel like maybe that for a reason. Maybe they came, sat in my chair for a reason, and opening up to me for a reason that maybe I can help them, guide them in a certain direction. But yeah, it is funny how, and I loved it with my students too. They would tell me things like, this person said this, and I'm like, you just got to roll with it. Like they'll tell you like they hate their husband, they hate their husband, hate their wives, hate their kids, all this stuff. And it's like some of the things you just kind of like, okay, like, okay. You just kind of play along.
Yeah, it's like, you should probably go see somebody about that. Not me, but somebody, go see a professional.
And I try to be transparent with people. There's definitely a line that you want to keep, but I really, especially the more I get to know people, I really try to be transparent with them. And like, I see a therapist, and I think it's great for everybody to see a therapist.
That's awesome.
Like, whether you're in a good mental state or not a good mental state, like just having that another party, neutral party to listen to, even if it's like maybe a business idea or whatever it may be, it's great to have. It really is. So I'm always, I'm open with them, and I'm like, I go see somebody. And, I had a client maybe like 2 months ago, and I took care of him maybe 2 times, I think. And he opened up to me that, that him and his wife, they have kids, and, they're struggling with their connection, because of having kids. And, I understand that. I've seen that a lot. We don't have kids, but I've seen it a lot with my clients that there sometimes is that disconnection with the parents because you're so focused on the kids.
Yeah.
And I was really happy to hear that he was honest with me, and he said that he started seeing somebody, therapist wise. And I was, oh, that's great, man. I said, I see somebody, and, you kind of saw him kind of like the light kind of go off in his eye, come on in his eyes, like, oh wait, you see somebody too? Like, and I think it made him feel more comfortable. And, and so we talked a little bit about his situation, and, I talked with him about my experience. Cause, as you guys know, relationship, marriage, it's not easy. No. Like you got ups and downs, but you're a team, and you work it out, figure it out. And so I felt like I could really help him out in the little situation he was in. And then afterwards I told him, I said, listen, if you ever want to get coffee and talk or anything like that, just hit me up. He's like, I'm all for it. I'm here for you, man.
That's awesome.
And he was really, really grateful for that. And so even times like I'll even like reach out and just check in, like how things are going. And I'll send him music because he's like getting really big into like jazz, and he's never been into jazz. And so I've been sending him stuff, and so it's cool to create those connections. But like I said, just being transparent with them because they're being transparent with me. And so I feel like honesty and just being open goes a long way with people.
Yeah. And it's, having that third party, like what you're talking about seeing a therapist or a counselor. It was funny because I had never really put this together, but there's a passage in Philippians chapter 4 where Paul he's addressing this conflict between these 2 women in the church. And also it's kind of hilarious because these letters were read aloud to the whole church, and he calls them out by name, and it's like, you guys need to figure it out. And like,
all right, I like it straight to the point. I like it.
But in that, he says like that the church needs to come alongside them and help them work through this issue. And it had never clicked with me, but I'm like, yeah, that makes so much sense. Oftentimes we need a third party who's not in the thick of the situation to kind of help us be able to see solutions, or to get our eyes to be able to see the solutions. And that's what counselors and therapists do. And that's what they're really great at. And I'm glad that the stigma around it seems like it doesn't really exist anymore. Maybe some people still have a negative opinion on it, but there's so many people who are seeking out help and seeing a counselor, seeing a therapist. And it's just incredibly helpful to have another soundboard. And I feel like that's why people open up in your chair too, because they're desperate for that. Like, they want to process what they're going through out loud, but they don't have that outlet. And so the barbershop chair ends up becoming that.
Because, you feel like, you figure these guys coming in, they're just with their wives or kids every day, all day, coworkers, friends. And like a lot of times, depending what they're going through, like it could be something with their wife or kids they're going through. So of course, they're not going to talk about it at home. Or, sometimes, you could be friends, but I think a lot of times people aren't open with their friends group just because they're worried of the effect it might have. They might just be looked at differently, and things could change within the group or whatever, the friendship. And obviously a lot of people aren't going to open up to their coworkers. So I feel like when they sit down in that chair, something about the chair that they just like, that I'm that third party. I'm that neutral party that, they maybe wanted to go to a therapist, but it's like, hey, they didn't want their wife to find out or friends to find out. Well, hey, I got this guy right here behind me. Let me try it with him.
Yeah.
So I feel like that definitely happens.
Yeah, I love this because, like, Patrick, your mission statement just sounds identical to ours. Like our mission statement is, helping men become the best versions of themselves and to highlight that we can't do it alone. You know, and that's what it sounds like you're doing throughout your, day-to-day work. And so, like, you're seeing all these people come in and, and I just want to know, like, do you see a pattern in 2025 of what's the biggest problem men are facing? Maybe our listeners are struggling with something too. And I didn't know if like, do you see a pattern going on? Like, is there a main thing right now?
So this is another question that I was constantly looking at and trying to figure out like the best way to word it and talk about it. I definitely feel like that there is. And I feel like it's been great seeing over the years the shift that's been happening,
right?
That people are becoming more open. But I feel like it also has to do with the generations. So I feel like with each generation, guys are becoming more open. And I'm sure you guys can probably attest to it. Like your grandfathers, like you probably may have heard the relationship your dad had with your grandfather. And it was very just father-son, just very not emotional.
Right.
Because that's kind of how my dad was with his dad. Like they had a great relationship, great connection, but there was definitely like, it was not like lovey-dovey. And so, and then I feel like then, you come down and you have my dad with me and just, it was incredible how he was with me. And then I feel like I'm just more open. So I feel like with each generation, it's getting better and better and guys are feeling more open to talk about things, which is great to see. But you also see that like dynamic where they're also struggling because you could see that they want to talk, but just from their family past history or whatever, or being a man, you don't talk about your feelings. Right. Like, I feel like a lot of guys struggle with that. Like, no, I'm a man. I shouldn't talk about that. I shouldn't talk about how I'm feeling. I should just go to work, do my thing. That's it. It's kind of funny. I just saw this skit from one of Bill Burr's comedy, one of his shows. And he's like, men are allowed to have two emotions, pissed off, angry, and I'm fine. And I'm not sure why I have balloons right now.
I don't know what that was about.
How does that?
I don't know. I was so confused just now.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was curious. Really... so you're either really pissed off or you're fine. And he like did these two like scenarios, but it's true. Like I feel like that's like the only two emotions guys are allowed to have. But I feel like it's getting better. And now this generation that's coming up behind us, I feel like they're really more open and transparent with their feelings, with their emotions. Because like my wife loves the Love is Blind show.
Right.
And so like, I'll hear it and sometimes I'll be in the room when it's on and just hearing these guys and how they talk now is kind of mind blowing.
Right.
Because it's stuff that we've never talked about, like my parents never talked about. So I feel like with each generation, it's getting more acceptable. So I feel like our generation, like the 30s, kind of 40s, like we're stuck in a limbo though, because like we want to be more open, but we're also like, no, we got to be the men. We got to be the provider of the family. Like we got to, uphold this statue. So it's a little bit tricky. Yeah. And so I feel like a barbershop is a great place for guys to kind of like just chip away at that. Kind of see that like, hey, it's okay. Like I can talk, I can be open. I can talk about how I'm feeling, that I'm struggling. I can admit that I'm struggling with my relationship with my kids, with work and stuff like that. And I think every time that they do get it out and they get a positive response, say like from me, like another barber, whatever, it's just going to help keep opening the door farther and farther. And then hopefully they just pass it on to their kids and they're more open with their kids. But I definitely feel that there is this struggle though that, but I feel like it is getting better. And I've had a few clients that have gone to therapy and gotten help. And also it's great hearing like different groups. Like I love hearing about the, was it F3 guys?
Yeah.
Like I love that group. Like, and I'm not a religious person, but I absolutely love what that's about. Like, and I think it's so great that there's something like that out there. And
my cousin is going to be texting me. My cousin wants me to join that so bad. And I know he's going to be texting me after you just mentioned that.
I have so many clients that try, but like I live in Kannapolis, I'm not driving over there. And they even tried to get me because they're like, oh, we have a nickname for you. I'm like, oh, cool. What is it? They're like, well, you have to come. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
So
Well, those guys like on a screen, but those guys like if it's raining, they're still out there.
Oh yeah, they're out there.
Like
they're out there.
they are
Yeah.
like insane with that. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that.
It sounds a little intense, but
Yeah.
But it
hey,
seems
they're
like
committed to each other.
They are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
which is
that's
what I
huge.
love, and I love that each each day somebody else gets to lead the workout of the day. And I think that's awesome that everybody gets a turn to lead. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. And I think that's awesome that there's groups like that.
Yeah.
And so I think you're starting to see more groups pop up like that, so guys have an outlet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so what you're saying is the biggest problem is we have this new generation who is totally okay with sharing their emotions. You have the old generation that doesn't, and we're like in a tug-of-war right now where we don't know what side to go on. And that's
100%.
almost more dangerous than the other two because you are even more confused. So, I mean, that's a good point. That's like, I totally agree with you.
Well,
Yeah, because
quote,
I mean,
go ahead. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, you're good. Yeah, go.
I was just going to quote the Avett brothers, who have a line where they say, 1 foot in, 1 foot back. It don't pay to live like that. That comes up in so many, many situations, but I think it applies to this one as well. Like, if you are in that in between where you're like, well, I see that this is good for some people, but it's also not the way I was raised. And, you're just kind of going back and forth. You're just going to be like paralyzed, kind of in that middle spot. So, I love what you guys do, especially at maybe not all barbershops are like that, but at least Sambuco is. You guys do just such a good job creating an environment for guys to figure out what foot they want to put forward, and like be able to navigate that kind of middle ground. And you guys do a great job of just like developing community, as opposed to just cutting guys' hair. You guys do, I don't want to steal your thunder, but like you guys have made an intentional focus, and I don't know who, I'm assuming that comes from the owner, Todd, but an intentional focus of actually like creating community beyond just guys coming to get their hair cut. So would you mind touching on a little bit of that and just how, you guys go about that, what the conversations around that look like?
Yeah. So it's something that, I've always taken deeply is community. Just because of how I grew up seeing my grandfather. He was part of a small little town, and he was pretty much like the mayor. Everybody knew him. And it was awesome. Like, and even me, if I was walking around town, they knew that I was his grandson. I don't know how, but they just knew. And I love that. And I love, some people don't like going to, say, the grocery store because they may run into their clients or something like that. Like, I love that because it means that you're doing something. You're doing something for the community. So community has always been a huge aspect for me just because of my grandfather and just seeing my dad, how he, like I said, he couldn't go anywhere without him talking to people. And I think that was instilled in me. And so I love the community aspect of it. And so it's cool at our shop because, everybody's the same. You're all on an even playing field when you come in there. We got guys that have no money. We have guys that are multi-millionaires, and you would never know who is who.
That's cool.
Because it's just such an even playing field when you walk in that door. Everybody's the same. And so we really try to keep it like that. And it's not something like we try to, it's just who we are. It's just how we go about our lives, how we do our work. But we love creating those great atmospheres, those areas where people feel comfortable. So like we'll have events, we'll do like bourbon nights. And what's really cool about like the bourbon nights is it's all, it's obviously all invite only, so it doesn't get out of control. So like max 30 people. And what's really cool to see within that is these little groups happen. So all these guys come in who are all clients of ours, and they may come, with another buddy or something like that. But then all of a sudden you'll see them talking with this group over here that they just met that night. And they're laughing and carrying on and just having a great time. It's really cool to see that because they didn't know them before tonight. And now they just created new friends. And it's cool because I'll kind of hear in on conversations and just hearing them, they're talking about their lives. with each other. And it's cool to see them like create those connections and like, hey, I'm going through the same thing. So that's why we always try to do like events. And we've done an event with one of our clients who's an author, and he writes books about like raising kids and stuff like that. And so we did an event where it was him, you came, it was his dad and you brought your son. And so that way the author was talking to both of you, and there was like little exercises he had for them to work on. But then he did a follow-up event with just the dads, which was actually really cool because I sat in on that, and it's really cool to see them bounce ideas off each other. Like, hey, I have a 10-year-old and I'm struggling with this. And another guy's like, hey, I did too, but I started doing this and it's really helped us out. And so it's really great to see these guys, you know, that live in the community but have never talked before, all of a sudden helping each other out. And so that's really cool to sit back and watch, you know, because it's something that I do on every day, but it's cool to watch them do it for each other.
Yeah.
And so it's not so much something that we like really try to create. It's just natural for us and just who we are. And luckily, you know, we created an incredible team that's all very like-minded and that just do what they do every day. And that's that. So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You seem like, I mean, a very humble person, because even when you're talking about being a teacher, you said that your goal was for them to succeed farther than you. And then when you're talking about these things, like, you're like, well, like, I know that, like, I know the answer to that, but I love hearing someone else give the answer. And like how you're asking about their day and you're not being like, well, you didn't ask me, but my day was like this too, you know, like you're like, you are caring so much about people, and that's amazing, man. I'm encouraged just by everything I've learned on this. So thank you so much for like everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've learned so much about just how to be a person, man. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I had the privilege of going to one of those bourbon nights.
Yeah,
and
I remember,
it was such a cool event. Like, I went by myself. I didn't know anybody going, to your point. And not everybody's going to do that, but I'm extroverted and I love meeting new people. And, you know, like you, it excites me to hear other people's stories. And I remember the age ranges there were kind of all over the place.
Oh,
I might have been
the place.
I think I was the youngest guy there.
Yeah, you probably were.
But I loved it. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
I get to learn from all these other guys. And I just talked to so many cool people. And then, like, I ended up on the couch beside this guy who I think he was in his 80s, had served in Vietnam. So he may even be older than his 80s, but he just started talking to me about that a little bit. And, like,
that's awesome. I wonder who that was. I remember. I do remember you actually sitting on the couch. I do remember that. But I'm trying to picture who it was that you were next to, because that was probably a few years ago.
See,
it was a while
there goes
ago.
his memory, you know.
Yeah, I remember him sitting on the couch. Yeah, because I remember you asking about it and you were stoked, and I was really hoping you'd come, and it was cool that you came. Because a lot of guys do. They say that they're going to come, and then I feel like a lot of guys are, I don't know, they just back out, whatever it may be. But I'm always excited when people come because I know the connections they'll make and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and it's actually funny because I tried to get Johnny to come, and he said no.
Okay. Let's not expose me like that. Hey, I didn't know how cool. Next one. I'll be there. I didn't know how cool Patrick was. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You had a legit excuse.
I don't even remember.
Come to your defense. You actually had like something going on.
Okay, good.
Come, but
my memory does not help me.
Yeah.
But
right. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, thanks so much. I mean, Patrick, where can people find you? Like on social media or your like barbershop, if you want to shout that out.
Yeah. So my main use is Instagram. So my, what do they call it? Handle? Your handle?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Handle is Knerr. So it's P and then my last name, Knerr. That's my main source of social media. And then, of course, work at Sambuca Barber Company. So we're located in Concord. So it's Concord, but it's a weird spot. Because we're in the corner of Concord, Huntersville, and Charlotte. So it's over by Skybrook. So again, you can check out Sambuca Barber Company on Instagram, website, I believe Facebook, things like that. So yeah.
Dude, awesome.
And I highly recommend Patrick as a barber. I drive 30 minutes to get my hair cut by him because I've never had a better experience. But all the barbers at Sambuca are great as well. So
incredible team.
Yeah, and it's a fun place to hang out. You get a complimentary beverage while you're there, which is pretty awesome.
Bourbon, whatever you want.
Yeah. So yeah, Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and just sharing.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
A little bit of your story. Yeah, really
Yes,
glad
thank
we
you.
finally got to do it. And yeah, for all our listeners out there, go be like Patrick and go be a dog today.
And go be like Patrick and go be there for your dogs.